laws of physics operate in the universe. He says that the laws of nature are so finely tuned to enable complex life to exist that it is extremely unlikely that this could have happened by chance. Such fine-tuning, Carr believes, at least raises the possibility of a tuner.
This is a diagram, it's called the pyramid of complexity, and what we've got here, we've got the different levels of structure in the universe, and at the bottom we've got the things like quarks that make up the atoms, and the atoms build up to make molecules, the molecules build up to make living cells, the cells make organisms, and eventually we end up with brains and consciousness. It's rather hard to estimate what the probability is, but it was clearly very, very unlikely that those fine-tunings which allowed this pyramid of complexity to arise would be there.
How did this come about, this rather terrific luck?
Of course, one of the first explanations that comes to mind is that there was a tuner or a creator, or if you like, God. And obviously for people of a theological disposition, the idea that the fine-tuning is evidence of God, of course, is wonderful.
But of course there are other exciting explanations as to why our universe is so finely tuned. One such idea is the multiverse.
We have the possibility that our universe might just be one of many, many other universes. This is called the multiverse.
To the average layperson, the notion of the multiverse stretches the imagination to a far greater degree, even, than the notion of a divine creator.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because if you do have millions of other universes, if you do have this multiverse, it's clear that you no longer need the creator, because you can simply say it's a selection effect that we have to be in one of the universes which allows us life to arise. Now, in that sense, I think you might say that the multiverse is the last refuge of the atheist.
The multiverse is one of several atheist explanations for why we're here, but to me they're all about as provable as God or transubstantiation. Modern physics, however, is not the denomination of science which most excites the atheist. That place is occupied by a text that now has the status of a New Testament. Charles Darwin's Origin of Species. It is a fundamental reason why many become atheists in the first place.
When did you first become an atheist?
And I think I became an atheist properly at the age of about 16 or 15.
And what was it?
I suppose it was really understanding Darwin.
Arguably, there has been no greater scientific discovery in the last 150 years than Charles Robert Darwin's astonishing realization of how complex life forms evolve through a painstaking process of accumulation from the very, very simplest of stuff. And of course it's this which has formed the main battleground between those scientists who see no room for religion in the world and those who can accommodate both a scientific and religious worldview.
For a century and a half, Darwinism has been atheism's trump card. But today, even its strongest tenet is under threat.
How long do you think it'll take before Darwin is actually comprehensively rewritten and it is accepted as such?
That's an interesting question. It could be rather rapidly.
All major religions have insisted that man occupies a special place in God's realm. Darwin changed all that. He put mankind back into nature, a creature different from the beasts of the field, only through a complex, natural process. He was taking on the religious establishment and inadvertently giving atheism its first sacred text.
Darwin brilliantly swept away that previously incontestable Christian truth that an organ as complex as, say, an eye could not possibly have arisen by chance. There must have been design. And Darwin argued, no, of course it's not chance. It's a gradual process of accumulation. In other words, he took on religious thought on its own grounds and won. And that's why atheists return to Darwin.
The importance of Darwin to atheists cannot be overstated. Steve Fuller, a philosopher of science from Warwick University, believes Darwin lies at the centre of modern atheist thought.
Well, if you ask about the relationship between Darwinism and atheism, I think it's a very clear connection, especially if we think about atheism as a view that's against any kind of belief in a supernatural personal deity that's involved with sort of planning a created universe. Darwinism clearly denies that. It's not clear, at least to my mind, on what other basis, especially scientifically credible basis, one could have for atheism.
Because of Darwinism's importance to the atheist project, it's not surprising that many apply it to much more than just biology. Darwinian thinking is even used to describe the creation, evolution and survival of atheism's great nemesis, religion.
Let me give you an example.
One explanation, thought up by Richard Dawkins, was the concept of the meme.
Things that might have got better anyway.
A meme is a cultural virus that survives down the generations, infecting everybody it comes across. The religion meme survives not because it's true, but because it serves the useful purpose of providing comfort.
If you look at what religions have in common, it very often is qualities which enable it to get passed on. Faith is a good thing. Mystery is something you shouldn't try to investigate. When you die, you will survive your own death. These are all viral ideas which are eminently spreadable, either because they have a kind of inherent spreadability in their own life. You could call them memes. Either they have inherent spreadability, or they are very appealing, and they spread because they're appealing.
But is this Darwinian metaphor an accurate way of describing religion? I went to meet Dennis Alexander, an immunologist and practicing Christian, to see what he makes of it.
Yeah. So far as I understand the explanation, it's that God, for example, has been able to replicate itself down the years like a virus. Do you find that a compelling argument?
Well, not really. I think that, in science we use a lot of metaphors. We use metaphors all the time. And the point about metaphors is they get taken on by the scientific community because they're really useful. They do actual work. Physicists talk about black holes and things like that, and we know what a black hole is. I think the problem about a meme is it doesn't actually tell us anything. It's a sort of vacuous concept because it doesn't really apply to anything that we know about in real life. It's certainly nothing like a virus. It's nothing like, the way a virus gets into a cell. So people don't really think that these beliefs kind of infect them secretly during the night by something floating into their brains.
This idea of a meme to explain away religion is a good example of the atheist's commitment to Charles Darwin. But I think they're pushing Darwinism too far, and I'm not alone.
My concern about this is that it seems to be a scientific theory being expanded way, way beyond its acceptable intended limits. Darwinism here is not simply a philosophy of the emergence of biological species, but rather a way of understanding everything. Darwinism is universal. That's a very interesting position. It's one that I personally have some difficulty with, because I certainly do not see the Darwinian paradigm operating, for example, in the history of ideas.
Day by day, the limits of Darwinism are becoming increasingly clear. Atheists hold on to the central idea of Darwinist evolution with quasi-religious fervour. But the fact is that the theory is getting on a bit. It's now 147 years old. And as with religion's ancient texts,